Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. We begin each meeting with everyone standing and reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The board reserves this time at the beginning of the meeting to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns or comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return to the district clerk, Christine Slagle. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board on anything pertaining to the agenda tonight? No? Okay. Well, we'll close that. And we've got a proposed consent agenda that everyone sees. If you need one, there are copies in the back, I believe. We've got some up front. Okay. The adoption of the consent agenda upon motion and second, an affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will then come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite routine matters so that the board has more time to deal with the substance matters. We're going to need a motion to bring that to the floor. The consent agenda excludes items 7A, 7A1, 7B1.
I think it's actually A, 1, 2, and 3, all the way and 4.
No. That's finance. We're in personnel.
I know, 1.
Okay, so it's
Oh,
A.
yeah, okay. Got
So
it.
it's A1, B1, and E1.
And B2.
However, on the agenda that we have prepared, item B2 is being removed, as is item 7F1, the name of Oliver Romero, classified custodial. Everything else on the agenda remains the same unless one of our members would like to pull something out of the agenda.
7D.
Okay. Is there anything anyone else would like to hold from the agenda?
Just like, oh, okay.
Now, which one did you say was removed?
Item 7B2.
Is that off the
Okay,
agenda
that is
altogether?
that
or
is
just-
removed from the agenda entirely.
Okay.
Oliver Romero,
Okay.
okay?
And
And also Oliver Romero is removed from item 7F1, just he, and the other 6 individuals remain on that.
I would like to, for 8D1, just like to have it taken out, just so I can get an explanation about it,
Okay,
a little bit further information about it.
okay. So, other than those items, it will be 7D1 and 8B1. Is there anything else any member would like to, well, okay. Okay, could I have a motion, Mr. Hawk, and a second on that?
One second.
Mr. Forrester. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. we go right into administrators' reports and elementary school building goals. Mr. Drummond, you're on.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, guys. So today I have for you our Fernandina Elementary School building goals. And a couple weeks ago, Darren and Paul and myself got together and we kind of aligned our building goals with the district goals. So compared to last board meeting when we saw Darren's goals, you're going to see some similarities, but the differences are on how we execute these things and how we make the goals come to life in our buildings. So what I have for you today are 3 goals. And I'm going to present the goals by name and what they are, what we're addressing, and then I'll show you today that they're going to be measurable. And we'll take a look at some of the data that we use to make our goals and some things that we use to help drive our decisions. And then we'll highlight the actions. These are the things that we're doing in our building to address those goals and meet the needs of our students. So our first goal has to do with absenteeism. And Darren talked a lot about high school absenteeism, and what does it look like, and how do we address that goal, and what do we do to increase the amount of time that kids are in our classrooms. So our goal is, my goal for the elementary school is to decrease chronic absenteeism by 5%. So what we have to do now is we have to start to take a look at some evidence and some data. And what we have here is we looked at our cohort data. So these are the kids that are in our building right now, our 1st through 4th graders, and what their attendance was like last year compared to what it is to date. So if we look at the definition of chronic absenteeism, being that a student missed more than 10% of the school year, or roughly 18 days. Last year, we had 3% of our population missing that. That's pretty good numbers. And then this year, to date, it would be roughly about, I think it was right around 6 or 7 days to prorate it. We have about 5%. So there's been some illness in our school and things like that. But it's early in the year, and I think that our absenteeism rate will kind of balance out. So those are pretty good numbers, but I think here at Fredonia I want to push ourselves to say 10%, and if we ask any of our teachers in the audience, that's a lot. So if a student misses 18 days of school, that's roughly 10%, that's a lot of class time to miss. So I kind of adjusted the data and I said, let's look at the amount of time, or the percentage of students that miss more than 5%. So we looked at our kids, and it jumps a little bit. So if you missed just 5%, that was 18% of our population. And then our cohort this year, we've already had about 15% of our kids miss 5% of the school year. So these are the numbers that I want to focus on, and this is where we're going to work to set our goal. So I want to drop these numbers by 5%, so we can have our kids in our classroom more often. So how do we do that? We've started this year by increasing communication. In the past, we've done letters home, and I think that's been sort of effective, but I don't know, we're going to continue that practice, and we're going to look at that influence on attendance. But I've also started making phone calls home. As much as I love technology and the ease of letters and emails, I think there's some value in a phone call home. So our friends who have missed more than 5 days, I personally started to call those families, and then we have some students who have missed more than, I think I called again after 10 absences. I spoke directly to those families. And it kind of helped me understand, well, why are you missing school, and what can we do to help you? And it kind of helped me move forward with an action plan, is that I realized that a lot of the families just needed help. We had one particular case where there was a medical issue, and there was an issue with the busing. The busing was coming at a time that just didn't work for the family. So I said, what change would you need from me to make it easier on you? And they said, I need 10 minutes. So I called the bus garage, and I said, look, is there any possible way to shift the pickup of the student by 10 minutes? And Ken, our bus director, said, this is no big deal at all. We can just go down the road the other way. It doesn't affect any of the other students. No big deal. So you call that family back, and right away, it's a huge win for the school. All that it took was a phone call and another phone call to our bus garage. So I think if we keep in mind that we're here to help families, it's helping to increase student attendance in that one incident, at least. We also have the Check and Connect program, and this is a program where we match students with teachers. We look for students who are at risk. These are kids who are already missing a lot of the school year. So we find a teacher that they are comfortable with, and we match them up. So every day, the picture that you see here, This particular student meets with this teacher every morning. And it starts off with a hug, as she drinks her coffee, and positive words. This is a student who we believe needs a hug, and I need a hug too in the morning. And I think that it's working, and this is a program that we're gonna look to expand this year in the elementary school to continue our work towards the goal. Are you thirsty? You already got a water, Mr. Patricio.
I go through 2 bottles. Just because I gave Mr. Paskimir water last time doesn't mean I was going to give you one.
I'm talking, man, this is great. You see, you leave the classroom and I'm not talking as much. Now, here we go. All right, so that's our first goal. So we're going to try and increase the amount of time that our kids are in our classroom. It's a great goal. It aligns with our district goals and our high school goals as well. So our next goal has to deal with literacy. I think it's one of the most important elements that that we work with throughout the school day, and one of the things that I want to focus on as my role as the principal. So we want to increase literacy, student literacy based on local measures. And let's take a look at what that means and how we can start to attack that goal. So if we take a look at some crazy data, we can simplify this. All of our students in grades 1 through 4 are screened. They're screened in the fall, in the winter, and then again in the spring. And these are online fast bridge assessments, and they look for things like fluency and reading comprehension and things like that. So right now, the data that we have to look at is our fall data. So our first grade friends don't necessarily take this one. They'll take it in the winter. So what you're looking at is our grades 2, our grades 3, and our grades 4. The blue are students who are on the college pathway for their fluency skills. Light blue is low-risk students, but where you get into the pink and the red, these are students that are considered to be at risk compared to national norms. So if you take a look, we do have some work to do. But if you see, as the students progress throughout their path and as they get older, you'll see a decrease in the amount of at-risk students. And we believe that's because of the effectiveness of our teachers and the programming that we have in place at Ferroni Elementary School. But another test that we take is the A Reading Adaptive test, and this is more for reading comprehension. So it's a unique test, and what we mean by that, it's adaptive, is the computer program recognizes when a student gets a question right or wrong, and then it challenges them by modifying the test in real time. So it's a really kind of cool way to look at reading comprehension of our students. So here's our fall data, and like I said before, we'll take it again in the winter and the spring. And this is the kind of evidence that I'm looking for when I make my goals. So if we zoom in on the fall data, the goal that I have for literacy is hopefully going to be measured directly by these 2 screening tests. So what I want to do is decrease the percentage of students that are considered at risk by 12%. So if you take a look at our fall data, if you combine our reds, I want to take that number and I want to decrease that by 12. So that would mean we would increase our students who are on the college pathway or our low-risk students. And how we do that is the art of teaching and things like that, and it's difficult. So I believe that independent reading has the most significant impact on a student's success in reading. So it's kind of a weird thing. I remember working with college students early in my teaching career, and we were doing reading at Dunkirk when I had 1 period of reading. And we spent a significant amount of that period reading. And the college students came to me and they said, well, are you really just reading in reading class? And I was kind of taken back. And I said, well, do you go to the PE teacher? And do you say, are they really just shooting hoops in PE? Or you don't go to the art teacher and say, are they really just drawing in art class? So I think, and the research supports the idea that the more time we spend reading will help our students read better, increase their fluency and comprehension. And we can kind of take a look at some of the more things that are supported in the evidence. So as kids read more, they read better. Their knowledge of words increases. Their language acquisition skills increase. They become more fluent. And it's easier for them to sustain the mental challenges of reading for long periods of time and to learn about new things. So how do you get kids to read more? Well, you do things that are fun and creative. So at the elementary school, we started something called the Reading Stamina Challenge. And you can back it up. Do we have sound or no?
You know what, I don't, the sound is working.
Well, that's okay. Well, I can tell you what they're saying. My goal was to get kids to read more. So we started this cool thing called the Reading Stamina Challenge. And what it is simple. We go around from classroom to classroom, and we challenged each other first. We said, hey, this is Mr. D's classroom, this is the Reading Stamina Challenge. And we made a time-lapse video of our early readers and experienced readers reading. And then at the end of the challenge, they throw it to another classroom. And what happened was, it kind of caught a little bit of buzz. We put it on the morning announcements, kids liked it, and it was my sneaky way as a principal to get kids reading more in the classroom. And by doing this simple thing, it had a broad effect. So in this challenge, we posted it out there on Twitter, and we said, hey, Dunkirk School 4. I think at the last board meeting, I said that we were gonna challenge them. So we did that. We said, hey, Dunkirk School 4, we challenge you to the Reading Stamina Challenge. Will you accept? And we hit up their principal and then their director of curriculum. And what do you know? They did. So they saw our tweet to them. So then they replied, hey, thanks for the challenge, Mark Drollinger at We Are Fredonia. Hey, Cloverbank Elementary, we challenge you. So they made a little video. So these are Dunkirk friends now. And it's because of our influence, because we're reading in the classroom here at Fredonia, we spread that to other schools. And they met the challenge to read a little bit longer than we did. Because what you're seeing here is we're building stamina. So not only is it important to have time with books, it's important to have extended amounts of time with books. So it was kind of a cool way to get books in the hands of kids. And Cloverbank did respond as well. And it's a pretty cool thing. So that was one small move that we made this year to increase the amount of time that we spend reading. So as a principal, one of the things that I want to do is I want to protect class time to read. I think it's important for our kids to be readers. So the message is clear to our teachers. It's okay to read in class. And we can tell it to families soon. But what we read, I think, is important. It needs to be of high interest to the students. They have to have choice on their books. It needs to be books that they can read fluently, and then that in turn will increase the volume or the amount that they're reading. And in this little picture right here, we see is a book buddy program. These are books that kids shop for in class in the library, and they take them home overnight for the weekend. But these are books that he chose to read, and I think that that has an important part of building literacy in the elementary school. So then, another important thing that research will support is that partnering students with higher achieving peers can have a positive influence on a student's learning. So something new that's coming out in January to the elementary school is we're going to start a book buddy program where we're going to match 4th grade students with 2nd grade students, and we're going to match 3rd grade students with 1st grade students. And they're simply going to read. Our higher level readers are going to read to our younger students. And the research will support that it will build positive peer relations. We can see the influence on each other as they work together, and hopefully they build a relationship throughout the course of the year. This is something that we're not doing at the elementary school right now, and it needs to take place. So we're going to roll this out in the new year when it's appropriate. When I became a new principal, I said that I'd give you guys new things, but like one at a time. So we're going to space them out. But this is government, so you know what I mean? And then another part of literacy is writing. And research will support that writing for an authentic audience builds confidence and engages writers in real-world skills. So this idea of giving kids an authentic audience is something that I hold very dearly to my heart. It's when Mr. Sortisio tells me a couple weeks ago, he said, hey, you have to make a PowerPoint presentation to present publicly at the Board of Education. I work harder because I know that I'm going to be presenting it to you. So think about what that means for a student. If a student is given an assignment, hey, you're going to make a PowerPoint presentation, you're going to give it to me, just the teacher. That's cool, but that effect is just going to wear off if it's just the teacher seeing it. But if you do a slight shift and say, hey, here's your PowerPoint presentation, you're going to have to present it publicly to a group of peers, or parents, or to kids in another school, in turn, you're going to work a little bit harder. So this is an idea behind some of the writing initiatives that we're starting at the elementary level. So one thing that we've done is we started celebrating the work of students. So in this case, we had a teacher who had kids write, I think it was some kind of nonfiction book about their own lives. And the students then used the Chromebooks that we have to record little videos of themselves as they read their work. Then they shared these videos with their peers, and they watched each other, and they left positive comments, all in an online platform. And the teacher reported, and I observed, that the kids worked harder on their writing, and they went through more revisions because they knew that they were going to be sharing their work publicly. So that slight shift helped us with the writing process, which editing is a huge piece of the writing process for our elementary students. So these are some of the things that we're doing to increase literacy in our building. And we're celebrating writing by doing things on the announcements, where students will give me their work, I'll read their piece, send them away announcements. It's again that public performance, which gets kids to work harder. Another thing that we're gonna start is the Winter Reading Challenge. I guess this is a tradition that's been carried on, and we're gonna continue with this. We're gonna have something called the 12 Days of Reading, where we give an idea of where kids can read for how many minutes, and then students will be rewarded for this over break. So the students that meet their criteria for their number of minutes over break will be rewarded when they get back with hot chocolate or cookies and things like that. And then we have our multi-tiered support services. This is something that the previous principal, Amy Piper, and our director of MTSS, worked very hard to implement in our building. And at its fundamental level, what this is this just delivers instruction to students in small groups at their level. It differentiates to a level of very high effectiveness, and it's something that we continue to support at the elementary school. So then my last goal works to address social emotional learning needs of our students. And my goal is to implement the New York State social emotional learning benchmarks in all classes. Not a lot of people know that there are learning standards for SEL skills, and these are things that we need to teach and we need to address. So how do we do that, and what does that look like? The research also supports this when it says, when social and emotional learning skills are intentionally taught, practiced, and reinforced in schools, students have better behavioral, social, and academic outcomes. So this is the why. Why do we teach SEL? Because of these things. But then how do we do it? So New York State rolled out 3 goals. And then what they did is they differentiated these goals, or they broke them down by grade level. So you have early elementary, middle school, early high school, and late high school. And it just kind of gives us a focus of what we teach when we're addressing SEL needs. So for example, an early one would be demonstrate control of impulsive behavior if you're an early elementary student. That's something that we need to explicitly teach to our students so they know how to manage their behaviors, and then they can move forward as they grow socially throughout our programs here. So the first step is we have to raise awareness of these standards. So in team meetings, in the past and moving forward, we're going to continue to share these goals, these benchmarks that have been laid out by New York State. And that's the first way that we work towards full implementation of the standard, is you have to know that it's there. We have a book study going on right now that Beth is a part of, and the book that we're reading is called Fostering Resilient Learners, and it deals specifically with the social emotional learning needs of students as well as adults, and this is something that we've met twice now. There's another meeting coming up, right? Pretty good. And then we have this thing called Saber screening tools. This is an online assessment that both students and teachers take, all students, at the beginning of the year. And it asks students to kind of self-reflect and look at their own social emotional health. It asks them specific questions like, I argue with others, or I disrupt class, or I get along with my peers. And what students have to do is they have to rate themselves, and what it does is after 20 questions, it kind of reports to myself and the teachers a score. Then what the teachers do is they take their own assessment on the students. So we don't, we try and rule out false positives, and we try and pre-teach these questions to make sure that they know, well, what does it mean when, or what does that word peer mean? Do they even know what they're asking? The test is read aloud to them with headphones on, and we talk about the rating scale of never, sometimes, often, and always. What does that mean? So the student self-assesses, and then the teacher assesses them as well. And then the counseling team gets a hold of this data, and we make school counselors groups. So we look at kids who have needs, and we address those in a timely manner, and we work to get kids, move kids in a positive direction with their mental health. And then what do we do for teachers? Teaching's tough, and this is a crazy time of year. So we have some staff wellness activities. We have about 6 or 8 of these throughout the course of the year. We've already had a few of them. It's just where we get together after school for fun things. We had smoothies, we had where we just walked around the school, and next week, Thursday, we're going to be doing some yoga and aromatherapy. So, sounds like fun, and it makes us healthy, right? So that's good. So those are my 3 goals. Now, Mr. Certisio said he would also like me to talk about my entry plan. So as a new principal, I have building goals, but I was in a unique spot because I had an entry plan. So this was kind of a cool way for me to self-reflect on the entry plan that I submitted to you guys during my interview and saying, did I really do these things? What went well, what went bad 3 months into the school year? So for the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna review my entry plan and we can talk about some of the things that I've done and some of the things that I have yet to do. So the entry plan was focused around me being a learner. I had to learn about Fredonia, leadership, and how to grow this district. And I focused my work on two things: building relationships and earning the trust of both teachers and students and the community as well as my colleagues here. So I came to the entry plan with a vision. So this is where we're gonna be tomorrow, or it's what we will become. And my vision for the building at the time, and I think it's still the same, was that I want to create a place where teachers enjoy working and kids have fun learning. And that's kind of, it sounds a little light and fluffy, but it's really heavy. Because if you can imagine a place where teachers love coming to work and kids are having a good time, teachers are going to teach better, they're going to work harder for their students because they're enjoying being there, and kids are going to be more successful learning because they're having fun. So that's still my vision, where I want to take the place. And then my principal's mission is, where are we today, or what are the things that we're actually doing to get to that place? And I posed my mission in the form of a question. And I pose this to the teachers, myself, every day, and I ask myself and I ask the teachers to ask of themselves. The simple question, was I better today than yesterday? And I think that if our teachers and our students live their lives by this question, the school will be a better place. So how did I anticipate entering, and how did I enter the building? 3 steps. I needed to connect with people, gather evidence, and then work towards growing. So to connect, I try to maintain a high level of visibility. Mr. Certisio was talking today, I had my mobile office, which was not in my office. I removed it, and I went in the hall and worked from the hall. It was cool, because I had to make this presentation, so I was doing some things, multitasking, maintaining visibility, and working hard. And then communicate often with everybody, as much as I can. The next step to the entry to the building was gathering evidence. It's kind of like figuring out, where are we today, where have we been, where do we want to go? And you do that by asking questions and reviewing data. So this is something that has been wonderful because of Mrs. Piper's work with all of her data collection. It was easy for me to come in and see where we are now, where we've been, and then kind of project where we need to go. I'm still asking lots of questions, and I appreciate all the help from my colleagues and the board as well, who I've asked questions to. And then, how do we grow? We act on committees and I collaborate, because I believe as a leader that it's important to make decisions with each other, and that's how we move a building forward. So my goals for entry were threefold: to learn, create a culture, and maintain safety. To learn, I needed to identify the strengths of our building. What are we good at, and how do I value every single teacher in the building? And you do that by observing first to understand. So when I observe teachers, when I walk through, I seek to understand what's going on in the classroom and hopefully value them. How do you create a culture where people enjoy working? It's by maintaining a positive attitude every single day. We praise and celebrate each other's accomplishments. I learned the names, and I think I'm there with that, still working on student names. And then you treat the school as family. And I think that those simple things help to make a positive climate where you're working. And then any building principal will tell you that it's important to maintain safety. I think Mr. Certisio asked me in my interview what was the #1 concern, and I said I don't want to lose a student because that's the #1 thing that we have to do. So I reviewed plans and then we practiced those. And I think that we've been okay with our drills, and we're continuing to learn and grow and figure out ways that we can get better. And the things that drive my leadership are my core beliefs as a leader. And this is the black and white. This is what it is. I believe that all students can learn, and I believe that effective leaders support their teachers. I believe that great principals maintain a high level of visibility, and they visit classrooms often. I believe that involving others in decision-making leads to better outcomes. Relationships are critical. Enthusiasm is contagious. And I believe that successful schools ensure that the best interest of students drives every decision. And I believe that the best leaders recognize the value each member brings and praises them often. So if I had to boil all this down, to one single priority, it was relationships first. I think that effective leaders have to have relationships, so that in times of need and when I need to ask for something, I can leverage the fact that we do have a positive relationship and that we work together to move forward. And then, here's my plug for my family, what I shared with my teachers on the first day of school. He's sick right now. He's fine, he's got a fever. But I said to my teachers on the first day of school that every child in the school is someone else's whole world. So if you are crying too right now, I got you. So if you can, if teachers can just keep this in mind, it is a good place to get it off. So that's it. So those are my goals, and that were followed up on my action plan. So if you have any questions, we can address them now.
Just out of curiosity, what was the 12%? What said, I'm gonna do 12%?
It was an attainable number. So what we did is we looked at the students who were the most movable. Okay, so you could, like, that was just a summary of the data. So we looked at every single student as an individual, and then they're ranked, you know, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, but they're either a high 2 or a low 2. You know what I mean? So we looked at the ones who were the high 2s, and we saw that these were the kids that were the most movable. They're close, you know what I mean? So we said, let's make it an attainable goal. So we think that, and when I'm saying we, it's our RTI staff and a collective decision. If we take these kids, hopefully our RTI program will be effective. They're most likely to move. And it worked out to be, that number was 12%. So I said, let's go with that because it's an attainable goal.
By the end of the year?
By the end of the year, yeah. So we have our 3 measures. So we have, and we'll know, we can report on this again after the winter measure. I think the week of the data screening is like the last week in January. So that would be great for me to show you where we are midway through the year, and then again at the end of the year. So that'll be an easy goal to measure. Hey, we either did it or we didn't with our interventions. What do we have to change, keep the same, or do different? So that was that one.
Mr. Trollinger?
Mhm.
Just with the data, it
Yeah.
was interesting in your color chart.
Okay.
In 4th grade, the dark blue got bigger
Yeah.
and the dark red also got bigger.
Yeah.
And just curious if you have any theories or, why, we're definitely seeing the blue get bigger, but we also saw that dark red get bigger,
yeah.
2nd, 3rd, 4th grade.
I think each cohort of students are, they each are unique. And I think that there's a different set of skills at each level. So it's interesting when we take a look at that. So I think, that's a good assessment. And I kind of did it both ways. I kind of compared the growth going this way as well. But I think a more accurate picture would be, let's look at this data again in the winter, again in the spring,
For sure.
and then let's look at shrinking them this way, because we gotta keep, every student is an individual,
Sure.
and I even feel bad lumping them together by grade level, but I think it's a better measure if we look at it this way throughout the course of the year, because the 4th grade's unique, you know what I mean? They're a group of kids that have their own abilities and skill set, and the 3rd grade's unique and the 2nd grade's unique. So, I guess I can't answer that, but I think the best answer would be that the real way to look at that would say, okay, let's look at these 4th graders as a cohort. Let's look at how they did in the winter and the spring. We won't compare them to the other grade levels, which.
So we don't have this data like for the 4th graders this year, what their 3rd grade data looked like?
We probably do. So that would be something to look at too.
Just and to see if there's any trends that
Yeah.
might jump from 3rd to 4th grade or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's why it's fun looking at all this stuff,
Yeah,
and it's why
definitely.
we're better together. You need to be pushed and look at the data in different ways. So yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that's not following the same group of kids.
So what
That's
you're looking.
individual grade levels current.
So yeah, so right here is the A reading adaptive reading comprehension test. So here's all of our 2nd graders. This is kind of like a summary of their performance in the fall test. We took it like the beginning of September. Here's all the 3rd graders, a summary of their performance, and here's the 4th graders. So what this will look like at early February, we'll have this data all filled in, and we'll get to see what happened. Are our interventions working? And obviously what we'd like to see are the reds shrinking and the blues growing. So, and then in the spring, ideally, we'd like to see the reds, really low. So that's the best way to look at this data. this is kind of like a snapshot right now. At the end of the year, we should bring this up. It would be something to look at, to see.
One kind of question
Yeah.
related to what Lisa was asking. So the grade levels, is there different amounts? Oh, the kids. Is there 100 kids in the third grade, 120 in that? And that'll change that.
They're actually really close. Third grade is our biggest class with 112. We have 98 in the fourth grade. And in the second grade, it's maybe second grade's our biggest. I think second grade is 112, and then we have 98 and 97.
So the
So,
fourth grade is the,
The fourth grade has 98 kids, third grade has 97, and the second grade has, I think, 112. So, I don't know. But yeah, it's the data, you get data overloaded, you know what I mean? It's a tough balance between
I like your
a quick
chart.
summary or like a real deep dive.
it would be nice because we're trying to create continuity
Yeah,
within the different buildings to
Mhm.
see the same chart.
you're
through the
right,
different-
as we pass them through to the fifth grade
Right.
and things like that, so.
I won't put you on the spot
Okay.
for a response, but within your entry slides, you
Mhm.
mentioned principals support their teachers.
Okay.
And we as a board are trying to support our administrators and our teachers also. I'm not asking for a response right now,
Okay.
but how does the board support our teachers and our principals better? Again, I'm not gonna put you on the spot,
Okay.
but that's something that I'm interested in finding out.
I think that's a good conversation to have, but.
We'll start by bringing your own water bottle next time.
Cheers. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So we have, next up, we have Ms. Troutman doing the Fredonia Middle School course.
Right off the bat, I see Mrs. Strawman has her own water, so I.
Yes, I do. Hopefully I won't need it. So Mark had, spoke about how Darren and Mark and I got together and, you know, truly as a district, we need to be moving in the same direction. And so it's important for us to be really on the same page with our goals and, you know, kind of rowing together. If we're all going in different directions, we're never gonna get where we want to go. So this year, we really talked about how we were going to work this year on the same goals. So again, you will see, the first one is reduction in chronic absenteeism. And again, I stayed with the 5% as the other two buildings did. I did want to give you a little bit of data on the middle school our attendance. So you can see the first chart is our 2018-19 by grade level. It's the percentage of attendance for that year. And you can see they're very similar. There's not a huge difference between last year and this year to this point. So then, what I did look at is, again, raising the bar, not what the state is saying is important for attendance. What we started to look at last year is 10 or more absences. We thought, you know, more than 10 absences were too much. So last year, we had 84 kids that had 10 or more absences. To me, we were just like, ugh, that's way too many. So 18.7% of our kids. And so we did start to put some things in place, and this year, again, you know, we are working on communicating with families and talking with kids and trying to engage them more to get them here. So right now, and I know we're almost halfway through the year, we have 14 students and we're at 3%. So we are making gains in that area, but it's something we have to work really hard at.
So that is as of December 1st?
Yes, yes,
Right.
yep. So what are some of the things that we talked about as a group to help with the absenteeism. We believe that building positive relationships and connecting our kids to school is important. And so at the middle school, we have things like athletics for our 7th and 8th graders. So they have a variety of things that they can participate in. And that is definitely something that keeps our kids coming to school, is athletics. We have student council. So our student council is pretty active. We have, last year we had, I think, 70-some students. This year we have a little bit fewer, we're in the 50s. But these students are putting on activities such as movie night. They marched in the parade, the homecoming parade. We had a Halloween activity night. Next week, they will be dressing up, getting the students involved. We'll have an 8th grade dance in January. So we're trying to get activities that the kids enjoy, continuing to have them involved in school. We have a variety of clubs. We have the yearbook club, the supply depot club, the art club, service learning club, and the announcement club. So again, we try to offer many activities so that the students are involved and connected to school. We are trying to increase the engagement in activities in our classroom. You've heard me talk about the workshop model and how we're trying to really change the way we are instructing within the classroom. So our teachers aren't doing all the work. We need the kids to do the work. We need them to collaborate with each other. We need them to be thinking critically. We need them to be collaborating. We need them to be communicating with each other in written form and verbally. So we are continuing to work on that. Next week, December 17th, Erie to BOCES will be coming in, and they'll be working with our staff during their prep periods to give strategies on to continue with that workshop model. We know the kids enjoy doing the work. A lot of them, it's something new. They're used to sitting there and having the teacher deliver the information, and this isn't that. And so they are working through that, but if you talk to the kids, they really do enjoy it. So we're continuing to work through that. Counseling and student meetings. We meet every Monday. Amy Gavazzi, Kat Beyer, Danielle Roberts, Jamie, and myself, we meet and we discuss students. We look at students who are struggling with getting to school. We talk with our teams and what students are having difficulties, whether it's attendance or behavior, social, emotional type things, academics. So we have conversations weekly. We reach out to families who are struggling. We brainstorm with them. We help them to get their kids here. Sometimes we have to go through other avenues. We have kids who really struggle not only in school but at home. We have worked to help parents get pins in place so that we can help students be in school. So we're constantly trying to help families with absenteeism. We do send home letters. So we have just like the high school and the elementary, we do communicate written on 5 absences, 10 absences, 15. At the middle school, once kids get to 10 absences, we have a formal meeting with parents. We either do it via phone if they can't come in, but most parents come in because they want their kids to be successful in school. So we do communicate with them. We usually come up with some formal plan, and we continue from that point out every time they're absent. We are communicating with them. Our secretary, Sarah Seaholm, in the office, our kids who are really struggling, she reports daily if they're absent to our counselors and social workers so that they know immediately and can reach out to the home. So we've really put some things in place to try and help our kids who are struggling, but also, connect with the families to offer help. And also our schedule has really provided a teaming approach in which teachers have shared that they are really developing deeper relationships with our kids. And they have felt that kids are coming to school more. And when they're not, they're reaching out to the families. So it's not just at, our level with the counselors. The teachers really are communicating with the families more because of the teaming that we have, where two teachers have a group of kids. And so that has really been powerful, we have found. So just a few pictures of some activities that our kids are doing. Again, trying to get them engaged in their learning. So our next goal was student literacy improvement. So students will demonstrate improvement in literacy this year based on local measures. So at the middle school, unfortunately, we don't have the data that the elementary does, but we are working to get there through the MTSS process with the guidance of Amy Piper and our team. We are working towards that. But this year, we were fortunate enough, and Joe has been a great help, that we are working with iReady to actually, they are kind of giving iReady to us to pilot this year. And we liked iReady because not only did it allow us, it's going to allow us to benchmark in January and June. And there's an instructional piece that we're going to be using with some of our students who are struggling. And so that is a new piece that we added this year. So again, we will be assessing our students, benchmarking them in January and in June, and so we will have some data to show the growth that we are seeing in our students. Our instructional leaders are reading a book. We're doing a book study. It's called The Writing Revolution, and it's really targeted for all content areas and how we can do a better job writing in the classrooms. It gives a ton of strategies. So at our IL meetings, we are discussing and kind of talking about the strategies. The teachers were reading one chapter a month, and I've asked them to go out and try the strategies. And so they are, and then they're bringing back and they're sharing that. So that's kind of how we're tackling it in that way. The literacy coaching investigation that Darren is doing at the high school, I say investigation because I'm really intrigued as to how that is going to work for his building. How Lisa is going to work with other teachers and what that looks like. I'm going to keep a close eye on that because I'm really interested about that. But I want to talk a little bit about our MTSS support program. It is brand new for us this year, and so we're kind of saying we're building the plane as we're flying it, and we have a plan, and we're changing it as we see things aren't working and things are. But this year, we are really trying to get the procedures and systems in place. We're working with our teachers to discuss students and collecting and looking at data, and that's something we haven't done. We are communicating with parents. We are going to be sending, progress reports home to parents so they know that the work that we are doing and how their students are progressing. So our MTSS program is still in the works, and we are continuing to work on that. We are using time during faculty meetings and in-services to collaborate. Again, the workshop model is a big lift for us, and that is really what we're focusing our time on. But through that is literacy, and that's what our focus is for that. Development of interdisciplinary units. Our teachers are having time to be able to talk about interdisciplinary units, and that goes back to literacy. It's how do all the pieces come together? Math, science, social studies, ELA. Our 7th grade team already has gone to some trainings And they are really moving forward with that, so that's kind of exciting for us. ELA department. Our ELA department has really tried to take the lead on literacy. They have developed basic literacy expectations across content areas for the middle school. They will be presenting that at our January faculty meeting, so we can have discussions about it and kind of help people wrap their head around what that looks like. But I commend them for their work on that. They also have worked very hard, grades 5 through 8, on vertical discussions so that they are aligning their ELA standards and skills. Sorry. So, continuing to develop scheduling options to meet students' needs and flexibilities. I added this in here, and not only will this affect literacy, but all our content areas. As I reported last time, we will be adding some travel time for longer distance classes. This year, starting in January, we're going to add 5 minutes to grade 7th and 8th lunches. We're going to be offering academic support to students who are not receiving it within the classroom. It will be opposite ensembles, but we're willing to work with families to make sure that will work. We will be sending out mailings to all our families on the changes, and the families that are directly impacted by the academic intervention, we will be personally calling them and setting up a time to meet if they so want to, or phone conversations. Let's see, meeting with families to discuss student educational opportunities and needs. We sent out, like I talked about last meeting, we did send out letters to our 5th and 6th grade families to invite them in to talk about our educational opportunities. So we have had one family take advantage of that, but it's open to those families as well. The committee, the scheduling committee did meet last night. We are continuing to work on changes for a schedule for next year that will add flexibility that we all want. We identified that our whole group parent presentation in the past did not communicate well enough to our parents to ensure that they understood the impact of the changes. We are moving to a more individualized plan in which we will be using our March parent-teacher conferences to have individual family meetings. This plan allows for parents to meet with small teams to discuss specific questions about their child, their schedule, the teachers, programming. And we're quite excited about it because we also plan to use that time to offer different learning opportunities for parents. So for instance, one station, we'll use it like a rotating, where they can sign up for different classes. So coming in and they can sign up to talk about scheduling. Another one might be, what's going on with Chromebooks? How are you using them? You know, just learning about that. Our MTSS program, you know, helping them to understand what it is that. How do they read the iReady data? How do they make sense of that? So we're looking for these mini classes that, along with meeting with teachers, that they can sign up for that day. So we're really trying to make it more personal so that it's not a whole large group, and some people don't feel comfortable asking questions. But if it's a smaller group of people, we're hoping that they can say, well, what does that mean for my child? And they're more apt to ask questions. So we are looking to do that. As far as advertising for that, we definitely will use multiple communications to make sure we get that out to families, because we want as many families to come in and take care of that. Communication is one of great importance to all of us, and so we know we have to do a better job, and we're going to use as many venues to communicate to our families as possible. So again, just some pictures of what's going on. The outside two are in our classrooms. You know, they're not the normal in rows kind of classrooms. You're gonna see kids using flexible seating. You're gonna see them in group work. You're gonna see technology. The middle picture is one of our faculty meetings. We're trying to model what we want to see in the classrooms, and we're doing some collaboration. They were doing some restorative circles at that time. So our third goal is social emotional learning. So the middle school will show improvement in the student perception of key components of classroom and school climate measured using the fall to spring panorama survey. And lo and behold, today, funny thing, the panorama survey information came back to us. So I didn't put it up here because you all didn't get a copy of it, but I did, I can find it. Glasses on. Can't see. So I did get that information today. So Panorama measures self-management. So how do students self-manage themselves? So our students said 74% of them are able to self-manage, and that's their perception. They also measure growth mindset. 53% of our students said that they thought they had a growth mindset. So that means that they believe they can always get better. They're not just bad in math. They believe that they can get better at math and work on that. 52% thought they had grit. And grit's important, we know that. And so that's something we need to work on. Emotional regulation, so being able to control their emotions. 48% of our kids thought they could do that. And so again, that is something we need to work on. So we just got those, like I said, this afternoon. I was like, oh, here they are. So what are some things that we are doing to help build social and emotional skills with our kids? We participate just like the high school and start with hello. Amy Gavazzi, Danielle Roberts, and Kat Beyer, they take the lead on that. We did clap our students in, so our teachers stand at the doorways, they clapped us in, and it's hysterical to watch the kids because they're just like, you know, they're doing one of these, they don't even know what to think about it, you know, they're just, because I have to tell you, we have clappers and we're clapping and we're like, hey, good morning, and they're like, they're not awake yet. But we did that, they did that. They also did Green Out Day, which is in support of Sandy Hook, so all the kids wore green. They did No One Sits Alone in the lunchroom, and I have to tell you, our teachers came in huge numbers to sit with the kids. It was really cool to see. They also did a kindness wall where the kids had sticky notes and they could write something kind about someone, and they went up into the cafeteria and put it up there. So start with hello. This is our second year doing that, and we've seen, you know, some really nice things come out of that. Our Pride initiatives, Pride is done at each of the buildings. Ours mirrors very much of what the high school does. This year we added a few things. Once every quarter we are having a Pride assembly to celebrate Pride. We've tried to get a little crazy. We want the kids to get excited about it. So the first one we did was the Pride is Right. And so we had Tim Wright was our Bob Barker, and he was called, not Bob, there was another guy that called the people down. And so he did that, and we tried to make it really fun. Then we did the masked singer, and so we had Daryl Wag and Jamie had masks, and they were announcing. And so we tried to really do some fun things with the kids, and they loved it. And so next week, Friday, is our holiday happenings, and we're gonna do something funny, and I can't spoil it, but again, we're trying to keep it fun and light for the kids, and they seem to really enjoy it. We are continuing to send our pride cards home to our children. Each quarter, students are earning pride chips, and the winning grade level, either gets, the last group that won, they wanted ice cream, so they got ice cream, but they have different activities they can choose from. And so we try to celebrate kids doing great things. Success skills, that is a new class that we started this year, really working on the soft skills that sometimes our teachers don't have time to really focus on. So some of the things we're working on in those classes are mindfulness, really having kids help to self-regulate themselves and kind of breathe and relax and try to get themselves back under control. We're doing some restorative circles, which allow students to really share and hear and be empathetic for other people, and do it in a safe way. We are working on managing emotions, internet safety, career week, and drug and alcohol awareness. So again, hitting kids in another way to think differently, and really think about themselves and how they can take those skills to really help make them better people. Random acts of kindness, we are doing that right now. We're working on it in which teachers are talking with kids about random acts of kindness. What does that mean? And so we printed off these small light bulbs, and we're asking them to either consider writing about someone who did something very kind for them, or something they would like to try to do. And so we're going to be hanging them up all over the middle school very soon. Now let's see. Again, we have those counseling and student meetings, and we're always talking about how can we support our kids, how we can do things proactively so that we are supporting them socially and emotionally. And I think, I said this before, I think our schedule and our teaming approach that we are using this year has really helped to connect our teachers to our students at a deeper level. So we've seen really some great relationship building going on there. So this was our masked Pride. These are our Pride winners from the last one, and start with hello. These are some of our activities. The middle one is a Pride assembly, but the outer two are from our student council's activities. So again, things we're trying to keep the kids involved and engaged. And then I had to, because this was so cool. On Halloween, I challenged our teachers to dress up, and they took the challenge, and so they do a lot of team stuff now. Even we're doing door decorating right now, and as teams, they're coming up with a theme and they're decorating their doors, so it's pretty cool to see. So questions?
On the goal number 3, the social emotional learning progress,
Yes,
you've got the panorama survey,
yes,
and I realize you just got the data today.
yes.
Do you have any thoughts about increases? I mean, you want to improve that, but do
Yeah.
you have any idea where you would like to see it at the end of the school year?
I would love to see all of them at 85 or above, but I think that's a heavy lift.
Okay.
I do. I would like to see the majority of our kids feeling that, they can self-manage, and that they have grit, and that they know they can do whatever they set their minds to. And so, I always try to shoot for the sky, but, I would say if we could improve by 10% in each of those, that would be great, but I would want more. I would love all of them to be much higher.
Just related, did we do that panorama survey last year? Do we have a comparison on where we are compared to last year?
I did not get the data at the end of last
We
year.
look at the data at the end of last year, what did we get at?
I know, we did it, but we never got the data. So I can reach out to BOCES and see, because that would be a great
Well, I think
thing.
again, help benchmark.
Or even comparing the beginning of the year last year to the beginning of the year this year.
Right,
That would be
right.
good to see as well.
And then just a follow-up
Yeah.
also is that what Mark was saying, that the teachers about the students, did we do that?
We did, there
In the middle
is
school
a,
also.
oh no, the teachers do not do
to
the
each
survey,
individual student?
but we do go through with the students, there's a PowerPoint, and making sure they understand everything. But there isn't a teacher component to that.
Okay. Do you anticipate that, you only got the data today, that at a future meeting, that maybe we can pull some of those pieces together? I mean, or the next time we review the goals, that would be part of that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry, I had another question. I think this has been really helpful to have this consistency across the buildings, and I think, if we have for a few years kind of similar goals, to be able to see that progress. One thing I noticed, and I don't know, like the absenteeism, Mr. Drollinger selected 5% 9 days, you selected 10 days. I think just to maybe continue on that consistency, do we pick something that is,
Right.
What is the threshold? Or is there a reason that elementary threshold would be different than middle school threshold, or Mr. Paschke, what your threshold was? I don't know.
In general, 10% is considered chronically absent. At least that's what they're going with the Harvard study that we're working in right now.
Right,
And so that would be 18 days total for the year.
right,
And I think all of us as principals feel that that's too high.
right.
And so we haven't agreed on what we think is,
Right.
obviously 0 is what we would like.
Yeah, sure.
But we haven't agreed on like a threshold below that.
Right. And maybe there's a rationale for different level buildings having a different threshold, but I think, again, just when we start to hear numbers,
Yeah.
where you are, is there some comparison?
And there really is a trend to the data. If you look at it over a K-12 span, kindergarten's typically a little bit high because the kids are younger and they get sick more often. Then it dips down as you get to closer to 3rd or 4th grade. And then after that, it's a slow rise up all the way to 12th grade. So there are differences based on the grade levels and just norms nationally, what they look like as far as the absenteeism goes by grade level.
Because when you turn this way and look at your seniors and tell them they need to be in school.
Get to school!
Senioritis.
These are the ones that I'm not that worried about. We got some really good seniors here tonight.
See who's in the back row?
That's Mr. Lauer, that's not one of our students.
So, I like consistency between the campuses. That's great that the principals are getting together. In middle school, it seems like there's a lot of collaboration going on with the teachers, which is great. I was wondering if you could take it a step further possibly. Has there been any collaboration between the teachers in the different campuses, like high school, middle school, elementary? Because, in 9th grade, that 9th grade history teacher, he or she is teaching the capital cities of the United States, not knowing that it's been taught to these students 2 or 3 times already.
We need to do a better job with that. I will tell you, last year, I did reach out to Darren and ask his 9th grade teachers in each of the content areas, what is it that you need our kids to be ready for when you get them? And so he worked with his staff to get that, and then we did bring his 9th grade teachers down to meet with our 8th grade teachers, but we need to do way more than that. We are gonna move leaps and bounds if we are working together K through 12. And so, I know, Joe, that's something that he is, wanted to continue to move forward, and I think through Curriculum Council, we are making strides to that, but we have a ways to go.
There could never be enough collaboration.
No, you're right, yep.
So how do we solve that gap?
I think,
I mean, that seems like a
Yeah.
basic elementary 101 should have been happening.
I honestly, it's getting them together, and I think the plan for our next in-service day is truly what we're talking about. And I don't know if Joe wants to talk about that, because it's not his time, but the thought is to get people around, you know, getting K through 12 teachers around a specific subject that they're interested in, and they're gonna roundtable and discuss. And so I think we're headed in the right direction, but it's getting time. Time is so valuable, and, you know, getting time after school and in-service days, you know, that's what's holding us back, is that time. So, but we do meet department-wise, you know, especially 7 through 12, there's more of that interaction. It's getting elementary to middle school, that really, I think, is an area we need to work on more so. So I need to work with Mark on it.
So along with that, I mean, it's not just the academics, but you've gone through your goal 3 of, 6, 7, 8 things of, to start with, so hello and the pride initiatives. I know the pride initiatives are in high school, but is there something that we can start in pre-K and then continue right on through till they graduate? Because it just seems that these 7, 8 things here are just 5th to 8th grade, and then they drop off, and there's a new program once they get to high school, or there's a program in elementary school that gets dropped when they hit 5th grade. Is there something that we can get the 3 of you to get some kind of get a culture that continues throughout all 14, 14
And I think there are. Our pride starts in the elementary, and then, we looked at the high school because it made more sense to us, and so they do get that all the way through. I think all of us are start with hello. So I think there are pieces socially, emotionally that we are doing. I think the more our MTSS team continues to meet and evolves, I think that will get us all on the same page. We're starting, at this point, we're communicating what we're doing, but the elementary is so far ahead of both the middle school and high school, so we're trying to catch up to them. But I have to say that since I've been here, Darren is always open to having conversations with me, sharing ideas with me, and that's, I think, where it has to start. Mark, since he's been here, he's more than willing to share what he's doing and wants to hear what we're doing. And so we are, getting to know each other and building relationships, and that's just going to help everything else, in my opinion.
Let me chime in for a second too, because you really have 6 instructional leaders, 7 if you want to include me in that. But so when you look at Mrs. Piper and Mr. Dillinger and Mrs. Troutman and Mr. Paschke and Mrs. Farrow and Mr. Rada, the collaboration amongst that group is so far ahead of where it was just a year or 2 ago. And you see it in their goals, you see it in their presentation, I see it in their interactions with each other. And I think they, Mrs. Troutman used the analogy of all pulling on the oar in the same direction. And we're much further along in that area than we were not too long ago. But you're asking great questions of how can we improve vertically. It starts with the things that you're saying right here, and having the administrators come to some agreements and some plans and develop some actions that may look a little different, but also but have maybe the same goal. And Pride's a good example there. So I'm very proud of our instructional leaders in this district, and that's the focus that they should have. The days of a principal or a director just managing their component are long gone. They have to be moving the needle on the instructional program, and we're going to start to see more and more now.
Question to that, is there any observations or history on grade levels as they proceed, K through 12, to understand? I mean, we see these charts, but they're constantly a chart of that grade level that year. But, following a certain grade level through, that's going to be the key to understanding if we're seeing improvement.
And I think attendance is an excellent is an excellent piece where you can look at a grade level's attendance through, over time.
Well, not just attendance,
But
but,
it's an
you know,
example.
their interest in school.
You know, so you're talking about the panorama survey.
I'm talking about, yeah. I'm talking about their learning levels, their increases in that, activities as to what they're involved in, and so forth. As they progress, things get a little more complicated and a little more involved.
Now, academically, doesn't the state provide cohort information academically? So you can track cohorts?
Okay, thank you.